תל אביב 360, ערוץ הפודקאסטים של אוניברסיטת תל אביב.
Please welcome Mr. Ido Aharoni.
Wow, this was the shortest, most effective, most efficient introduction I've ever had. Please welcome Ido Aharoni. I mean, we should have thought about it before. I'm so happy to have all of you here. This is an extremely well-attended event, and of course the reason is because today we're going to engage in conversation with a true defender of Israel, perhaps a person that many of us would consider an unlikely defender of Israel. I don't think so, because he's a loyal Israeli citizen, as he describes himself. But the purpose of this discussion is really to dive deep into the issues at hand. Yosef Hadad, our guest, which I will introduce him properly in a couple of minutes, is perhaps the best person to have that discussion, because he is at the forefront. He is fighting the good fight day in and day out, and that's why he was invited to speak here. I guess I was invited to be part of that because of my decades-long experience in North America, trying to impart Israel's message. Many of the people here in the room know me from my various capacities, from my days on the West Coast to my days on the East Coast. But I wanted to, before I introduce our speaker, to share with you three big picture insights that keep that in mind as we're having this discussion. The first is, those of you who attended the event in Miami heard me say that before. Remember that by and large, based on research, some of the research that was done by Joanna Landau, Linda's daughter, and the granddaughter of Shirley Porter. Here's Linda right there. Is Joanna here today by any chance? Oh, she has COVID. It's not fashionable anymore to have COVID. It's kind of outdated. We're all looking for the next virus. The research that was done by people like Joanna and my dear friend Monette Malevsky, who did a study after Operation Cast Lead in 2009 in Canada on behalf of the Hebrew U, actually, what we discovered is that you can really categorize or divide people in Western-style democracies, open pluralistic societies, into three groups. All three of them we will talk to Yosef Hadad about. The first is, I call them the 10, 20, 70. The 10 is the people that are not buying whatever it is that we're trying to sell, right? These are the tough people that Yosef Hadad encounters day in and day out, where he goes out to protest on campus. Then you have the 20%. These are our friends. Most of the Zionist Jews and the Christians. And then you have the real challenge, which are the 70%. These are the uninterested and the uninformed. What do we do in order to effectively connect them to Israel? Okay, so keep that in mind. Second thing, it's true that Israel's reputation suffered a major blow once the war broke out. But we must remember the big picture. And the big picture is that according to every major study, including this one conducted by Axios, indicates that the level of political support, meaning the realization, the recognition, the acknowledgement of people of Israel's right to defend itself, is perhaps at an all-time high. Pew discovered in late March 2024 that 79% of the American people put the blame squarely on Hamas. Harvard University, together with Harris Poll, discovered the same thing at the end of April of this year. In Axios, we see here the study that shows that this is a study that was conducted among American students. In the United States alone, 5,500 universities, 21 million students. The vast majority of the students in the United States disagree with campus encampments, disagree with pro-Hamas sentiment, and this is, you can see the findings right here. The Middle East is last on the list of concerns. The same thing goes for other countries. I believe that in Canada, the situation was similar when Manette did her study in 2009 during Operation Cast Lead. At the bottom of it, it says the conflict in the Middle East. The data is from Generation Lab. Respondents selected up to 3 issues. So students were presented with a list of issues. They were asked, which issues top your concern? And the Middle East is last among American students. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't have a problem. It means that it is incumbent upon us to understand the big picture. And lastly, which is something I'm extremely curious to hear about from our guest. You know, I chatted here with the contingent from France. And I told them, you know, this mess we're in, it all started with French philosophers. And specifically, I'm referring to, of course, French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre, who came up with the idea that in order for us to properly judge the world and examine society, we have to view the world through the eyes of the underdog. Only the disadvantaged, he claimed, and the underprivileged can have a true perspective about what is right and what is wrong. Now, philosophically, you may say this is a noble idea. But what happened in reality is this was misinterpreted as a license for the underdog to do whatever they want with impunity. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing people that think it is impossible for them to conceive an underdog that is violent, an underdog that is wrong, an underdog that habitually is making mistakes, an underdog that is brutal and vicious, like Hamas is, like ISIS is, like Al-Qaeda is, and so on and so forth. And so that is a tremendous challenge that we're facing, a psychological barrier, because our human tendency is to sympathize and empathize with the perceived underdog. There's a movie that I urge all of you to watch, a comedy called Tropic Thunder. It came out in 2008 with Ben Stiller. So it's a movie about a group of Hollywood narcissistic actors shooting an action military movie somewhere in the jungles. What they didn't realize is they're being observed by guerrilla forces that really think they're American soldiers. So they capture them. While they're in captivity, the character, who's Ben Stiller, is falling for a 3-year-old Asian toddler. That's the underdog. And he thinks he has a relationship with him. He cares about him. And when they're finally rescued by real soldiers, he doesn't want to leave the village. He says to the rescuers, I have to go back to my boy. He's my boy. He needs me. I love him. And they say to him, don't go. There's a battle going on in the village. But he runs into the village. Seconds later, we see Ben Stiller running out of the village with the toddler on his back with a knife stabbing him frantically like this. And Ben Stiller is yelling, I was wrong. And the big question that we need to answer is, will we see that moment when people on American campuses, in the corridors of power, even in corporate America, will we witness that moment when people will say, we were wrong? Yosef Hadad was born in Haifa as an Israeli Arab and moved with his family to Nazareth when he was 3 years old. I watched his TED Talk, which I recommend all of you to watch, in which he talks about so genuinely and so beautifully about his relationship growing up with Israeli Jewish kids playing soccer. And that experience, by the way, which says something about the power of sports, that experience made him an Israeli first. He says, I went to the Israeli army not because it's the Jewish Defense Forces, but because it's the Israeli Defense Forces, and I am an Israeli. So Yosef Hadad is a true defender of Israel. In 2006, during the Second Lebanon War, he was badly injured in the battle over Bint Jbeil, almost lost his leg, but thank God recovered from it. And shortly thereafter, became a journalist. And as a journalist who was interviewed by many other great journalists, most recently he was on the Piers Morgan show. I urge all of you to watch that video as well on YouTube. He emerged, especially after 10/7, as a clarion voice of the only Jewish state. So here you have an Arab Israeli who served in the Israeli army, is becoming a staunch defender, a clarion voice of the only Jewish state in the world. And to discuss that, again, unlikely pairing, please welcome to the stage Yosef Hadad. All right, so welcome, Yosef. You can see by the response of the audience, this is a home court event for you. Everybody's rooting for you. Everybody loves you here. I think you can feel the love. Let's start from the beginning.
I just want to say,
Yes.
contrary to your introduction, my introduction was absolutely amazing. So thank you very much for that. If I'd known that, I would have come 2 hours earlier.
Yeah, anytime you need someone to introduce you like that, call me. I'm available. Let's start from the beginning, Yosef. Tell us about your childhood. I know that when you were injured, the first thought that crossed your mind is, what I'm going to tell my mom. Tell us about your family, your upbringing.
You know, I think in order for me to talk about my family and the strength of my family and the power that my family gives me and the support, I don't have to go much to my childhood. I want to even talk about what happened about less than a year ago when all of my family, with me as well, we were in Dubai having a family vacation. It was my parents, my brother, my 2 sisters with their husbands and kids. So we were 14 people. We had a great vacation. And it was 2 months before the attack on the 7th of October. So it was on August. And while we are on the plane, waiting to depart from Dubai back to Israel, a family from the Arab society here came up on the plane. They've already known that I'm going to be there because my sister heard them speaking that they want to attack me. I prepared myself and even way before they came to the airplane, I was the first ones to be in the plane. But way before they came, I put my phone and start recording because I wanted to be, extra careful if they do something. I did not know that they're actually going to do something because, again, we were in Dubai, in an airport, in a plane. I mean, how stupid you are to attack someone on a plane. But they are stupid, unfortunately, and they did attack me. And the second
Physically attack you?
Physically attack me. The second I hold the phone to show their faces, they punched me on the hand, and then as a result of that, my phone fell. The second that happened, my dad, who's over 70 years old, I'm telling you, he just became a lion and stood up to defend his kid. Yes, because for him, I'm his kid. It doesn't matter if I'm 50, 60, or 70, I'm going to still be his kid. And after that, from the commotion that happened there, my mom broke her hand. And but here's the story, actually, that shows you the strength of my family. We all went down from the airplane to the bus to go back to the terminal in order for us to file a complaint about the attackers. So meanwhile, we're waiting for authorization to go and drive from where the plane was back to the terminal. All the family was in that bus. My father was holding my mom's hand. My mom's other hand was like this because she was in pain. And only later we understood that it was broken. But at that moment, and this is the key point, at that moment, my father looked at me, and the second he started talking, everyone listens in the family. It's very simple. And that day he said to me like this in Arabic, "Dir balak اتوقف," which means be careful to stop. And he said, be careful to stop because he told me that those people who are attacking you like this, they're attacking you for two reasons. One, they are scared of you, and second, they know that you're actually managed to do some effect. And because of that, and you're getting closer and closer and closer, that's why the only way that they can silence you or to stop you is by intimidating you and by intimidating your family. Well, you got your family's support, so make sure to continue. And this is my father and this is my family. And I think that just shows who they are.
And we will absolutely an incredible and inspirational story about parents protecting their child. And we will get to that reaction to you, to your persona in the Arab world, and in particular in the Muslim world. Growing up, were you extremely unique, or there were other kids like you, Arab kids, Christian kids in Nazareth that wanted to be in the army?
No, I think that back in 2003 when I decided to serve in the army, I don't want to say that I was unique, but I was among the few of the Arab Israelis who wanted to join and serve the army. Or should I say not who wanted, but had the courage to do that. Because a lot of Arab Israelis also wanted, but they were afraid to do a step like this. Now, from 2003, the year that I drafted, to 2024, I can tell you that the draft of the Arab Israelis, both Christians and Muslims, went 1000% up. 1000%. And the reason is because we are seeing that the younger generation want to be an integral part of the Israeli society. The problem is that we have other elements. We have extremist groups in our society. And throughout my journey, I had the chance to get to know them even better, to know their way and how they act and how they attack. And I understood why it's not easy. I understood why the majority of the Israeli Arab society are silent. So every time people come to me and say to me, how many Yosef do we have in the Arab Israeli society? And I say, look, how many Yosef we have in the Arab society? I'm not sure even in the Jewish society there are, many Yosefs. I'm an Israeli patriotic that if the national soccer team loses, I am upset for 5 days. Just understand how many days I'm upset in a year.
Yeah.
We suck at soccer. I mean, I'm sorry.
To those of you who do not follow Israeli football, we haven't made it to the World Cup since 1970.
And
And last game, we were badly defeated by Iceland.
And if we're already talking about soccer or football, to be honest with you, I know that there are Americans and Canadians and Europeans. In America, for me, it's football, okay? Because when you play a game 90% with your hands, you cannot actually call it football. It's, handball. But I have to be honest, when I mention in my lectures and my engagements in the United States about the debate, whether it's soccer or football, I honestly can tell you I had worse debates about this than the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. To that extent. But as I said, it's football, and it should be football, but we'll go with the Americans and say soccer if it needed, just to...
So, Yosef, you kind of, based on your experience, and obviously you speak the language, so you broke the code of understanding why the Arab society has issues with Israeli policy, with Israeli government. And how do they react to you today, Arab Israelis?
So here's the amazing thing. If you go to the TV or you go to social media, you would think that I'm an outcast. That's it. I'm a lonely, lonely voice based on social media. But if you come with me to Nazareth, to Shfa'amir, Taibe, to Rahat, all those cities, Arab cities and villages, suddenly everything would look different. I'm not a politician, but a few weeks ago, people from the opposite side to me, they ran a political campaign against me. And only after I did a bit of a research, I understood why they ran a political campaign against me. Prior to that campaign, I had a debate with the CEO of an elected political party here in Israel, which is called Jabha, Hadad. It's an Arab political party. Has 5 seats in the Knesset. And the president, the CEO of that party, we had a debate on TV. And with all modesty, I say that, I totally humiliated him and crushed him. And I'm just saying the facts. And I think he got upset. A day after that, they took a video that was from a TV show from a year and a half before today, and they uploaded that video, took a bunch of influencers from the Arab society in a targeted and timed way, and they uploaded that video under the headline, and watch this. This will show you how much effect I have on the Arab society. The headline was like this. If you thought you want to be like Yosef Hadad, consider again. Watch how even the Jews thinks of him during the war. Again, it's a video from a year and a half before the 7th of October. It's a video that was took by a political party, put as it happened today. And what was in that video? A very extremists from the left in the Jewish society, very extremist, minority. They do not represent the left, they do not represent the Israeli society, obviously not the right, nothing. It's a tiny proportion of the Israeli society by a journalist by the name of Gideon Levy. I always laugh and I say that, Gideon Levy represents a 0.00000000000000001% of the Israeli society. But the thing is, in the Arab society, they're not familiar 100% with that. So for them to hear someone from the Jewish community comes and say to me this sentence, I have zero respect for you because I have zero respect for collaborators. I swear to you, I thought he was looking at the mirror while he was saying that. But the thing is, just to give you another understanding of how they are afraid of how much I'm affecting my society, is that they are doing this because they want to make sure that the young people from Nazareth, for instance, I'm walking in Nazareth and then an 11 years old kid comes to me, I follow you in TikTok, can I have a selfie with you? This is something for every radical politician in our society is a no-no. Because for them, how come young Israeli Arabs, especially for instance from Nazareth, will have the audacity to come and ask me to have a selfie with them? Because it means that they like what I do. And they are getting affected by the messages. And I see that many times. And that's why they are scared. And this is the only reason why I first know that I'm affecting my society. And second, I know that there's a huge gap between what you see on the social media to what's actually going on the surface.
I think that with all honesty, yeah, please. And I think that we see that disconnect between the Arab political leadership and the grassroots of the Arab community in Israel. It's been going on for many, many years. And I
100%.
think that their fear is that someone like you could become a role model for the younger generation. That's a real concern. Now, let me ask you the same question about the rest of the Arab world we're surrounded with.
Yeah.
How do they accept you or reject you?
So here's the thing. Obviously, we have to be here honest. I mean, we've seen the numbers. We know exactly that the Arab world in general is incited against the state of Israel. I've said it many times. If I would have only watched Al Jazeera channel, I would be number one in, I don't want to say a terrorist, because I don't want to exaggerate. Many people watching Al Jazeera and they're not actually going there and blowing themselves up. But the level of incitement against Israel and the lies and twisting the facts is unprecedented. I'm watching Al Jazeera because it's very important for me to know how to explain the situation. That's why I'm watching also Al Jazeera. But by only watching them and not searching for other point of views and other news, I'm telling you, I would absolutely hate Israel. And I would act against Israel. But I know that Al Jazeera lies, and that's why I fight them. And by the way, this same method that you see in Al Jazeera, you see it also in the Arab Israeli channels as well. I'm banned from the Arab-Israeli channels. And the reason why I'm banned, not because the channels don't want to invite me. A senior editor in one of the channels, in the Israeli Arab channels, he contacted me and said, Yosef, I want to have you on one of our shows. But the second I suggested that, some of the political personas in the Israeli political sphere, in the Arab society, they veto it. And he said, you do a meeting with Yosef, an interview with Yosef, no one will come to your channel anymore. So they veto it, and they are literally, I mean, this is literally a pure definition of my version of their apartheid. And there they come, and they claim that the state of Israel is an apartheid state. So I cannot handle that level of hypocrisy, or should I say, I cannot accept that level of hypocrisy. So of course the Arab world is incited. But on the same level that the Arab world is incited, anyone from the Arab world, the majority of the Arab worlds who follow me, okay, not all of them, because obviously you have, from the Arab world that hates me and curse me and threaten me, but the majority of the Arab world who actually follows me and educated, they're the one who sends me messages and telling me, listen, you opened our eyes. But more importantly, it's not just the Arab world. More importantly for me, is the Arabs here in the West Bank and in Gaza, and certainly in the Arab-Israeli society, because I believe that the Arab-Israeli society, put aside the West Bank and in Gaza, the Arab-Israeli society are actually the key to this whole conflict. Just imagine, I want you to imagine an Israeli government with at least 20% representation of the Arab-Israeli society, because we are 20% of the population. That will shift everything. I want to see ministers, not one, not two, not three, but at least 20% of the government, ministers from the Arab society. That will shift everything. That will make everything different. It will no longer be Muslims against Jews. It will no longer be Arabs against Jews. It would be Israel, the state of Israel, which is a Jewish state, but also a democratic state where you have minorities with rights. And it would be Israel against the Palestinians or against the terrorist organization that comes from the Palestinian society. And that's how it should be.
Which begs the question, which I'd like to present to you, what is the pathway to get to that point?
We're absolutely doing it right now. We're doing it right now, and I'm telling you, the Jewish community, whether they are in the diaspora, whether they are here, they have a huge part. I always do a little joke when I tour in the United States or in Canada and meet with the Jewish community as well, because not only the students on the campuses need also what we call it the explanation about Israel, but certainly also the Jewish community. I've seen many times when I spoke to the Jewish community around the world that there's a lot of there's a gap between really what's going on in Israel, especially regarding the Israeli or should I say the Arab Jewish-Israeli relationship. And by the way, my opportunity here to tell you about one more definition. I hated when people describe the relationship between Arabs and Jews here in Israel as a coexistence. I really hate that, Ido. I mean, think about it, okay? You're a Jew, I'm an Arab. I mean, you're not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. And the way they describe it as a coexistence, like, listen, I don't tolerate you, you don't tolerate me, but you're not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere, so let's just live in coexistence. That's the situation. But it's not true. It's not true. This description or this definition could be good to describe the relationship between the Israelis and the Egyptians, the Israelis and the Jordanians. We're not going anywhere, we have to tolerate each other, let's live in peace. But the fact is that the relationship between Arabs and Jews here in Israel, it's based on partnership. Shutfut. In Arabic, it's sharaki. And that partnership, leave the fact that we saw it on the 7th of October. I mean, through that disaster, we've seen how Arabs and Jews saved each other. And if you're not familiar with the stories, you should be familiar with Yosef al-Zayadni, who worked as a driver in the Nova Party. And when he was asked, why didn't you run away when bullets were flying all over your head? He said, why would I fly away? Why would I run away? Despite that he is an Arab Muslim, he said, I'm an Israeli, and there were Israelis there. He ended up saving 33 Israelis from death. And Remo al-Huzayl, an Arab, he deserved it. By the way, he had the honor to light the torch in the Independence Day, and I should say deservedly, because he's an amazing person. he did the minimum, but the fact that he was a hero, it's something that I'm not surprised by it. It's not like I was surprised also to hear the story of Remy al-Hozel, an Arab Muslim police officer in the Israeli police force, yeah? Now leave the fact that he eliminated several of terrorists. But when his ammunition was over, he tried to save himself, but then he realized that there were 300 Israelis in a very, very dangerous zone. All the cars around him were either burned, destroyed, or whatever. He didn't stop searching for a car until he found a car with full tank, running as it should be. And for 3 hours, he kept going back and forth, back and forth. He took over 300 Israelis to safety. He saved 300 Israelis, an Arab Muslim police officer. These stories we should echo everywhere because people need to understand the relationship between the Arabs and Jews here, based on partnership, not coexistence. And further than that, where you can see the best partnership, go to the Israeli hospitals. You will see Jewish doctors treating Arab patients. You will see Arab doctors treating Jewish patients. I saw it in my own eyes 2 days ago. I was in the hospital. An IDF soldier officer, a hero. And he says, yes, Dr. Amjad is coming to treat me very soon. An Arab doctor coming to treat a hero IDF soldier. This is only in Israel. Further than that, families of Arabs and Jews together in one room. I know that I'm not generalizing, and I know that there are anti-Semites and racists who don't want to be in the same room with Jews or Arabs. I know it exists. I'm not naive. But the vast majority of Jews and Arabs is exactly what I'm talking about. If you go to any hospital, from the south to the north, you would see exactly what I'm talking about. 3 years ago, my sister had a baby. When she was over with giving the birth, and she went to that refreshment room, there was a Jewish family there. The second the Jewish family realized that an Arab family is coming, especially after having a baby, they were absolutely happy. Do you know why? Because they know that in 15 minutes, the baklawa and knafi is coming. I can't say the same thing about the gefilte fish, huh? That is partnership, ladies and gentlemen. Partnership. Start using this to describe the relationship between the Arabs and Jews here. And that partnership existed way before the 7th of October. Way before the 7th of October. But unfortunately, it seems like only because of the 7th of October, people are more and more talking about it. But no, it was way before that. And through that biggest disaster of the state of Israel, I really think that we have this opportunity. We have this amazing opportunity to show the partnership, the true partnership. And when I say to the Jewish community, and that's all this just to come back and tell you, that I always have 3 requests when I meet the Jewish society. And it doesn't matter whether in the diaspora or here. And don't worry, none of them are money actually. So, the first one, when you hear voices like mine, support those voices. The second, don't be skeptical. Because when you are skeptical, my enemies, the extremists from my society, will use your voice of being skeptical against me and voices like mine. And the third thing is to be patient. If we have your support, less skeptical, more patient, we actually stand a chance to do a huge difference in our society. And that will change not only the Israeli society, but actually the entire Middle East.
Well said. Well said. Now let me ask you a question that relates to the way Israel handles its own reputation. I think that 10-7 made it very clear that a country's reputation is part and parcel with its national security, no less than the army. A reputation is a big part of our national security. What do you think official Israel is doing wrong? And what are they doing right, if they're doing anything that you think is right?
All right, so I cannot start this answer without differentiate, of course, between the official leaders, politicians, or anyone who is in the official government offices to the people of Israel. Because I had the honor of lighting the independent torch myself in the last Independent Day, and we have a sentence that we say, "Letiferet Medinat Yisrael," and people
Which
ask
means
me
in English for the glory of Israel.
of the state of Israel. And many journalists ask me, are you going to say to the glory of the state of Israel this year, especially after what happened? And I said, you're damn right I'm going to say it. And I'm going to say it not because I'm representing a politician or I am representing an office, official office of that or that. No. This is not to the glory of the state of Israel. The glory of the state of Israel, it's people, Jews and Arabs, left and right, secular and religion, who came all together to save the state of Israel. It was the people who saved the state of Israel. And that's why I will proudly say to the glory of the state of Israel. Now, saying that, of course I have criticism towards my country. I had criticism way before the 7th of October. Not only about the Hasbara, about the explanation of the state of Israel, because prior to the 7th of October, everybody looked at it and said, okay, we don't actually need it. You know even better than me how the government, every government, not just the last one, every government treated an office that called Hasbara, Misad Hasbara, the Hasbara office. It was some sort of an office to give a politician to quiet him, to silence him, to say, don't make any problems, keep the coalition, here's a budget, here's an office, here's a title of being a minister, and go be quiet. That's how, not only, by the way, not only the officials, also the Israeli society perceived Hasbara. Meanwhile, our enemies, they are absolutely in it all the way. They saw something that unfortunately we missed. And they worked hard, and they put their virus, the anti-Israeli, pro-Palestinian, terror-supporting virus in the academy. They put it in the campuses in the United States, on every campus actually. They put it in culture, in sports, in politicians. Meanwhile, we are sleeping. Few of us try to do something about it. But you cannot actually do anything without the help of the state, because they are being helped by different states, like Qatar, for instance, funding over $1 billion of the US campuses. And you know how it works. They will give you fundings and they will tell you, this money, but make sure that 40% of it goes to this subject. And what is the subject? You already know exactly what it is. And that's how they managed to infiltrate all those places, and we were sitting down and quietly. So that's one aspect of criticism. The second aspect of criticism is the fact that we are not understanding that we are a Western country with Western values, and we should keep that. That's what differentiates us between any of the other countries around us that they seek death and war, and we seek life and peace. But all I'm saying is that we cannot exist if we do not manage to balance the fact that we are a Western country in the Middle East. And just let me give you an example to make you understand what I mean. I'm not generalizing, and I'm not saying everyone is a terrorist in the Middle East. Of course not. I would be failing in my own mission and vision if I say that. But all I'm saying is that we need to be very determined when it comes to the terrorism and their supporters. And unfortunately, we're not. 3 months before the attack, Hezbollah, they set up a tent in Har Dov, in an Israeli territory. What did we do? Let me tell you what we did. We decided to try to solve the problem in a diplomatic way. Now, if we are a Western country in a Western world, this would be perceived, and it is perceived, as maturity, as strength, which is right. But unfortunately, in the Middle East, it's perceived as total weakness. And the terrorist organizations are seeing it. Meanwhile, in the West are looking, wow, Israel is so mature, good for them. But they're not the one who's dealing with the terrorists. We are the one who's dealing with the terrorists. So if it was up to me, and that's the point of criticism, if it was up to me and I had the chance to decide what to do, at 7 p.m. they put the tent. At 7:01, there's a huge hole with a bunch of terrorists inside of them. That's how you deal with terrorism in the Middle East. Determination and further determination. And make no mistake, with people who want peace, not only you reach your hand and you shook that hand, but you keep it and you make it even further. That's what I want to see with the UAE, with Bahrain. That's what I want to see with Saudi Arabia. Those are the things that I want to see in the Middle East. But let's go back to the previous question. that will also be easier to happen when the Arab-Israeli society as an integral part of the Israeli society. That's what we should work on. And this is a very important mission to the state of Israel. And that's what I think also the Jewish society are seeing this. Guys, I cannot walk today in the Israeli streets. And this is something amazing to see because of the support. And that support from the Jewish society gives me the strength to continue, and that adding to the support that I'm getting from my family and from my friends and from my partner. And this is why it's important, because the more we support each other, the more we are actually focusing on showing the good things of the state of Israel and not also being focusing only on the bad things. I am not naive, as I said. We are looking also at the bad things and we want to fix them. But if we fix them together, it would be much easier. And certainly, the extremists from all sides would be scared, because finally that voice, the voice of truth, the voice of partnership will speak out loud. This is what we want to do in Israel, and that's how eventually we will prosper. And if we do that, no one can beat the state of Israel.
Now, let me ask you a question that obviously is very relevant, because as I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is a home court event for you. How do we avoid the danger of finding ourselves preaching to our own choir?
So here's the thing. I don't believe what I'm doing today is preaching to the choir. I believe what I'm doing here is a sort of an eye-opening for each and everyone regarding the Arab-Israeli society and regarding the future and the vision of the Israeli society. This is why in every video that I make sure that there are Hebrew subtitles. A lot of the people ask me, to who you do Hasbara explanations? And I said, I do it to the Western world, to the Arab world, and certainly to the Israeli society as well. We need Hasbara. People do not understand how much the Israeli society are also thirsty to understand better what's going on, because they want to feel part of the Hasbara. Guys, the only reason why I have the massive power that I had since the 7th of October is because of the Israeli people. They understood that we have to work together in order for us to bring the reality. And I'm not saying that Israel is perfect. And I've never said that there is no racism here or discrimination. But you want to tell me that each and every one of you coming from the United States, from Canada, from Europe, do you want to tell me that in your own country you don't have racism or you don't have discrimination? It exists in every country, unfortunately. The only thing that I say is that there are great sides and good sides about the state of Israel and the Israeli society that we need to focus on, because if we focus on them and not also forgetting the extremists, that's the only way that we can beat them. Because what they are doing, they're saying, okay, here's what's bad in Israel. And that's what they present to the world, only the bad things. So, of course, everybody would be incited against Israel. That's actually the idea and the ideology for the anti-Israelis. They want to do that. Now, what struck me is that it's so easy for them to do it because they prepared themselves for many years. I mean, all eyes on Rafah, the campaign that started just 2 days ago and exploded everywhere. Everywhere. They again adopted the narrative of a terrorist organization, because according to the IDF, you know what, put the IDF aside. According to Palestinians, I obtained videos from Palestinians talking momentarily after the attack on Rafah, where 35, according to Hamas, 35 citizens were burned to death. But here are the facts, and look how the world adopted immediately a terrorist organization's narrative. The facts are simple. Israel, the IDF, before they struck, first of all, they had the advice of an outside body that gave them the authorization, which is a legal body, all of them lawyers who understand the international law. The external body approved the IDF to go and launch that operation. We used a precise missile. Seconds after that, about a full kilometer from the destination from the target, things happened, and eventually we saw the burning tents. But then minutes after, Palestinians were actually filming and having a conversation between them and saying, it's actually an ammunition that Hamas kept here that exploded and made all this. So, do I feel sorry for the loss of any innocent lives? Of course. The absolute majority of the Israeli society feels sorry for that, unlike them. But do I blame my country for protecting me and protecting the citizens of Israel, both in Jews and Arabs? Absolutely not. You blame Hamas, the terrorist organization. The terrorist organization that put ammunition close to civilians. That is the situation. That is the reality. And when you see something like this, and then you see that the world are adopting the narrative of a terrorist organization and not actually a democratic state with a democratic regime, an army, the most moral army in the world, you cannot not stay calm and see how there is a huge gap between that. And that's why we need to fight. And the only way I managed to do some fight is because of the people, that they shared my contact, that they start doing something like this. Do you know how much I'm amazed and proud when I see an 11-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid that decided to become an activist? He opened his own account. He started doing videos to the level that he actually became influencer. An 11-year-old kid by the name of Ben Karaso. I urge you even to follow that kid. He's amazing. So for me to see that kids are actually trying to do something that I'm trying to do, and the support of the people, and all the share of the content of the people, this shows how the Israeli people wanted to know more and more about what's going on. But further than that, this shows how the Israeli people, and we are calling biased audience, says, oh my God, I know about Israel, but there's so much information that I had no idea about, and I'm going to start using it now because this is an important tool to explain about Israel better. Because you're getting it from the perspective of an Arab who live in Israel, not a Jewish who live in Israel. And that changed everything. Yes, to my identity, there is a big effect. Big effect. And before I say goodbye, I will tell you a funny story about that effect. But this is the situation.
I'll remind you. Now, I'd like you to wear the hat for a second of a journalist, an analyst, a Middle East expert. Many of us feel that 10/7 triggered something very big, and that throughout the Muslim world, and maybe this feeling is not justified in facts, but throughout the Muslim world, there is a feeling that we trigger their appetite to destroy the state of Israel. Now, we've seen that before. We've seen that in 47, 48. We've seen that even earlier than that, 36 to 39. Question is, where do you see all this going? As an analyst, what do you think is going to happen, and certainly what should Israel do in order to improve its positioning?
It depends. Because if the vision that I am working on do succeed, I think we can go to a different scenario. Because if the Arab-Israeli society comes from a place where they are proud to be an Arab, proud to be an Israeli, and work for the state of Israel and for the entire Middle East, but from the place where we have the interests of our own country, this could change everything. Because I can assure you, when I meet with Arab leaders, it's a completely different conversation when some person from the Jewish society meets an Arab leader. It's a completely different conversation. Completely different. And I still want to hold for a second and talk about the fact that, based on the radicals in the Arab world, the entire Arab world should have already attacked Israel. Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, all of them should be attacking Israel. Not the Houthim from a terrorist organization in Yemen, not Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon, not the Brother Muslimhood extremist in Egypt. No, the state itself. But there's no such thing as an Arab state attacking the state of Israel. It is a proxy of Iran. Look at it. Now, the fact is that this is not a full answer. Obviously, it doesn't mean that the leaders of the Arab states love Israel. No. But they also know and understand exactly who are the Palestinians, and especially who are Hamas is. And further than that, way before you go to the fight between Arabs and Jews, I can assure you that the fight between the sect of the Shia and the sect of the Sunni is even more worse than the fight between Israel and any Arab country in the world. So Iran being the representative of the Shia sect, and Saudi Arabia being the representative of the Sunni sect in the Islam, they hate each other way more than even Iran hates Israel and Israel hates Iran. That's why we're seeing this flirt between Israel and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. It's part of it. It's part of it. And they also know the fact that if they want to secure their own future, they should put hand to hand with Israel and not with the Iranian regime. But they have to play the politics. I mean, not everything we say. For instance, Saudi Arabia saying Israel is committing genocide. They're trying to silence the Arab world from the criticism. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, and Ido, you know this better even than me, behind the scenes, the talk is completely different. Now, for us to make sure that they also stop doing this, not behind the scenes, is the Arab Israelis. Because I'm telling you, there's a huge difference from a Jewish Israeli coming and condemning Saudi Arabia to Arab Israeli who comes and condemns Saudi Arabia for calling Israel doing a genocide and doing it in Arabic. Many times happened to me when I opened my mouth and I start speaking with my mother language, everything changed, even in the midst of a lecture with not only not biased others, but the majority of anti-Israeli audience. So if we work together, and if the Arab-Israeli society, as I said, the key for the third time here, because it is, I think we can go to a different reality, a reality where people do not even thought of, because they didn't think that the Arab-Israeli society would be strongly against Hamas. It's crazy how the Arab who live in Israel are strongly against Hamas, but a white American in Columbia University is actually supporting Hamas. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Now, I have two more questions for you, and then the funny story that you promised, and then we'll go to the audience. My first question is related directly to what you just mentioned. So you were there in America. You
I got punched.
You got
badly.
Punched badly on campus. My question to you, and this is really also for the benefit of those of us here in the room who would like to help. What messages work or what messages do not work vis-a-vis those 10% anti-Israel on campus?
So here's the thing. With them, there is no messaging. And that's what we need to understand. Don't waste your time on them. They're not the purpose. Why I'm wasting my time on them? Because I'm happy to make them look like a fool. That's it. This is the only reason, really. Every time I go to them, it's not from the place where to convince them. I'm just using them as a tool to convince others. I'm not trying to convince the extremist who punched me. I'm just trying to make sure that they look bad. And they look bad because I don't need to do much. I just need to film them, and they will do the rest of the job. So I do not believe that even when I am in an audience, actually you said it, and why you were saying it was so, I'm saying, it's so amazing to see that we've never spoke about it, but what you said is exactly what I say and think. And the 10%, and then the 20%, and then the 70%. And this is what happens also in my lectures. In my lectures, usually my audience is split to three groups. The anti-Israelis, the pro-Israelis, and the 50-50. Now, some of the 50-50 are totally ignorant, and some of the 50-50 are really just want to come and listen. And if I manage to convince them and show them the facts, then they're on our side. I don't think that in 45 minutes plus 15 minutes of Q&A, I will change the anti-Israeli student who have a ribbon of and a symbol of Hamas on his head. I don't. What I try to do is piss them off, and I actually do that. And that's satisfying enough. For the pro-Israelis, and that's also another mission why I meet an audience that's, supportive. Because for the pro-Israelis, first of all, when they come to my lecture, it's a statement. Because they know that there are anti-Israelis there. And they know they're going to target them for coming with me and cheering for me. So I'm absolutely honored, actually, to speak in front of them. And I'm absolutely honored to say that they give me strength, because if they're alone, they're not in Israel, they don't have Israeli police organization, and they don't have the IDF, and they don't have the entire Israeli society. They are alone. And still they come to my lecture. It shows about their strength and about their power, and I respect that. And further than that, I admire that. So I'm trying to take some strength from them, but also give them tools to fight that fight. And through my stories and through my facts, they use that, and they also use it to combat and to talk with the anti-Israeli. So I try to, as much as possible, to also give them a lot of information to use. But the most important one, actually, is the 50-50. The only two things that I need to do is say the truth and make sure to back it up with facts. And that's what I immediately do. That's why I have presentations, I put videos and all that, and stories, real stories with numbers, with statistics, with names, with faces. I always, at the beginning of my lecture, I say, I don't want you to believe anything I say. Write it, write the names, write the stories, go check it. If I'm wrong, I'll quit. Guess what? I'm not. So that's what I try to do with those different audiences, okay? So when I meet also the pro-Israeli audience, I always urge them to know that you have 20% of the population Arab Israelis. They are successful. There are problems that we need to treat and to take care of and resolve. But the bottom line, when we are 20% of the population and we are 30% of the doctors in Israel and 50% of the pharmacists in Israel, that says something about the state of Israel. The bottom line is that when people are coming and actually saying that the state of Israel is an apartheid state, from the river to the sea, but they have no idea which river and which sea, that says a lot about them. But further than that, when they point about a problem that does not exist, it shows exactly their intention. You know, when I was a kid, my dad used to say to me, Yosef, if you want to solve a problem, first of all, know how to point that problem. It's 50% of solving it. When you know actually and point the problem. How can you point a problem that does not exist and expect to solve it? It does not exist. So when you chant Israel is an apartheid state and Israel is not an apartheid state, it means that you don't really want to fix that problem because the problem does not exist, but you want to maintain the problem. And why you want to maintain the problem? Follow the money. All those organizations that if you have peace here, they have no place in the world. Therefore, they will have no budget. Therefore, they cannot fly first class. Okay? That's the situation. Because if we want to be honest with each other, not only it's not, there's no apartheid in the West Bank and in Gaza. There are problems, big problems. It's not apartheid. But even they already categorize, Amnesty International categorized Israel as an apartheid state. Categorized the Arab Israelis living under apartheid state. Me living under apartheid state. And when I had a debate in the Irish Parliament, by the way, I asked them, how did you arrive to the conclusion, thank you, that Israel is an apartheid state? And I asked it on the Foreign Affairs Committee, live. I did not answer. I didn't get any answer. Only when I turned to the head of the committee and I said, listen, you guys have been asking me tens of questions and I've answered all of them. I've been asking the same question 10 times and I didn't get an answer. Can you please make them an answer? How did he came to the conclusion that Israel is also an apartheid state on the Arab who lives in Israel? Do you know what was their actually response? Their response that their report was based in one village in the south, which is an unrecognized village. So they deliberately took the worst case in Israel and make an entire report about it. That's how you make a false perception about Israel. Because if you want to be honest, South African apartheid, it was very clear. It's a total separation and segregation between the white and the black. You use the transportation, public transportation, you have a line for the white people and a line for the black people. In sports, if you are a black player who wants to go and interplay in South Africa, you're not allowed because you're black. Hospitals, different hospitals for white people, different hospitals for black people. Court, justice, different court for white people, different court for black people. What's happening here in Israel? I wake up in the morning and I want to use the public transportation. I don't know if my driver is an Arab or a Jew. Certainly, I don't have a different bus lines or different lines to get up in the bus. And I can sit wherever I want. Hospitals, I've already said that the best partnership place to see is in Israel is the hospitals. Justice, tell that to the Supreme Court judge, former Supreme Court judge, Salim Jubran, who's an Arab Israeli, who was on the team that sent to prison a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president. Jesus, you don't understand that an Arab sent to present a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president. And I can keep going on and on. Sports, just in last August, the Israeli under-19 football team played in the World Cup. We did something that I couldn't believe. We took the 3rd place. I mean, you do understand that this achievement is unbelievable. Do you know who was the top scorer? Anan Khalaili, an Arab Muslim from Haifa. This is who we are. This is what I try to do and to show and to share the world with. You understand? And that's why I urge you, use those examples. Make sure that people understand that Israel is not only about the Jewish society, but it's the Jewish society, it's the Arab society, it's the Israeli society. This is the beautiful sides of the Israeli society. If we show that more, we show the sides that we need the world to see about Israel. And we are not lying. We're simply showing the facts. That's it.
Now, before I conclude this session with the last question, which I think is on many people's minds here in this room, you promised us a funny story, and it better be funny.
All right. I hope. Now with this... all right, I'll hope. Okay. I mean, so regarding my identity, throughout my journey, I always try to use different methods to pass a message. Sometimes by going to a Palestinian club and try to actually get into that club without explaining who I am, and then I hear everything they say, and then I reveal myself, my identity, and then you'd see how they shock. Well, to be honest with you, actually, the scenario that I'm talking about was actually in New Zealand. And when I came to that New Zealand local white girl, and I started talking to her, she told me Israel is an apartheid, Israel doing that, and the Arabs this and this and this. And then I told her, well, I'm an Arab who lives in Israel, and you're absolutely bullshitting. Now, she was white. If she could have turned more white, she would have turned more white. But this is not the story. The story actually comes from Harvard. About 4 or 5 years ago, way before the Abraham Accords, the peace agreement with the Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco, Sudan, and the rest. So way before the Abraham Accords, I arrived to speak at the University of Harvard in front of the political science department, professors and students. When I arrived there, I asked the event organizer and the host, I said, when my time comes to speak, and this is actually going to be funny, when my introduction comes, please don't say anything about me. So I actually requested that the introduction would be, our next speaker is from Israel. That's it. That's like, couldn't be shorter than that. Now, he didn't understand why I'm asking this, but he went along with it. When my turn comes to speak, he says, our next speaker is from Israel. Keep in mind, I wasn't as known as today. And I go up on the stage, and I start speaking and talking about Israel without revealing my identity, without saying my name, who I am. I'm just speaking about the state of Israel and the reality here. And I was waiting for something to happen. 30 minutes later, exactly what I wanted to happen happened when a student stood up and says, excuse me, can I say something? And I said, please, go ahead. And he goes, I have to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed, but also not surprised. And he said, why is that? And he goes, I'm a little bit disappointed and not surprised because I expect from any Jew like you to speak about Israel like this. Wait, shway. Wallahi, with my most Arabic accent at that time, I said to him, well, my name is Yosef Hadad, and I'm an Arab citizen of Israel. You could have dropped a feather on the ground and listened to the feather slams on the ground because everybody was in shock. 3 seconds later, you and I couldn't talk because the commotion was absolutely crazy because they realized everything I said came from a perspective of an Arab from Israel, not a Jewish from Israel. After the lecture, 2 students came to me. One of them is from the UAE, from Abu Dhabi. The other one is from Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. And the student from the UAE comes to me and says, Yosef, you really surprised us. I have no idea why I'm doing Arabic accent now, but just go with it. I'm just into the story, you know. And he says, like, you really surprised us. I'm telling you, you know, he's speaking with me in Arabic, yeah? You really surprised me. There's a lot of things about the Arab society in Israel I did not know. Then he surprised me and he said, so I'm related to the royal family in Abu Dhabi. So when I go back to Abu Dhabi, I will tell them what I heard in this lecture. So I always say that there's a huge possibility that I started the Abraham Accords.
Which is a perfect segue to my last comment, which, as I mentioned before, I'm sure it's on people's minds. You convinced us with your passion, with your conviction. You impressed us with your knowledge, with your charm. You taught us today about the importance of perceiving Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews as partners in this endeavor called the State of Israel. You convinced us that the real task is approaching the silent majority. That's our room to grow. Question to you is, are you considering going into politics and becoming a leader?
I mean, right now, I'll even reveal a couple of things to you here, feeling generous. So I've been approached by a couple of political parties. And my answer to them was very simple. We have 125 hostages in Gaza. We have soldiers that are fighting in the north, in the south, even in the west, in the sea, and of course in the east. And even all over the world, we have our Mossad agents. Everybody is fighting for the State of Israel. Anyone who is considering or thinking about politics at these times, I really hope that he wouldn't even get one single vote from any Israeli citizen or anyone who is eligible to vote. Right now, I'm dedicated to 3 things. 1, make sure everybody knows about our hostages and their families and the sufferers of the families of the hostages, that they don't have the loved ones sleeping in Israel in their own beds and their own houses. 2nd, showing our heroes, IDF soldiers from all communities. I go visit them in the hospitals, and by the way, I beg you, go visit them in the hospitals. You know, it's really, no, I'll tell you why. It really hurt me that 7 months after the 7th of October, at the beginning of the first 3 months, everybody went to visit the injured soldiers. And the last week, I visited 7 different hospitals, from the north to the center to the south. I was sad to know that the soldiers are telling me less and less and less people are coming to visit, and they are feeling alone. Please go visit them. I've said that yesterday on the morning show. I said, go visit our soldiers. It doesn't matter, it's already 7, 8 months after the 7th of October. We are still in the war, and those heroes need our support. So I'm focused on that. And I'm focusing on bringing closer the Arab-Israeli society and the Jewish-Israeli society together as an Israeli society fighting for our state. This is what I'm focusing on, not politics. When election comes and when we have our hostages back home, ask me, I swear to you, I will give you an honest answer.
Thank you very much. And with your permission, I'd like to open the floor for a couple of questions, and Tamar here will help us moderate because I can't see you because of the light. So, questions from the audience, please.
Yeah, first of all, if you can put the light on, it's fine. I mean,
Yes,
we can see the
please.
face of the people.
Yes.
I had a question from somebody, as somebody who lives in the diaspora. I hear a lot, I've seen the statistics that after October 7th, I think it was like 70% of Arab Israelis put Israeli as their primary identifier, and that was like, it had never been seen before at that rate, which is amazing. But I'm wondering, in the months since, and without getting into politics, I feel like there's definitely cracks emerging in terms of how politicians are approaching, not the people, but from a top-down level. And I'm wondering, from a grassroots level, how that identification can be maintained at that level.
Let me tell you one important thing, a factor that we are missing here. What happened at the beginning is that only the voice, the silent voice, finally spoke. Because the extremists, they were too scared after the level of intensity and the worst disaster of the state of Israel. Because any of the extremists, if would have talked in the first month, any one of them, they would know that they are going into a storm. A storm that, unfortunately, due to who we are as human beings, the further you go away from the 7th of October, the less you feel intense about it. This is a nature of our human being. Not to me, by the way. I'm still in the same level of intensity. That's why I keep going and going and going. But I took it personally. And I wish that Israeli society would have taken it personally. We'd be in a different position right now. So what happened is, what you saw is that the level of intensity that was at the beginning managed to make sure that the extremists would not talk. But actually the same voice that suddenly is not scared because he knows that the extremists will not talk, and suddenly that voice was more high. You know, the first 2 months I got so many messages from Arab Israelis says, I did a video in Arabic for your social media. Share. I want the Jewish society and I want the world, especially the Arab world, to know that the Arab Israelis are with the Israel against Hamas. And I've shared those stories. If you go back to Instagram, for instance, go back to the first month of October and the second month, which is November, you would see every week I uploaded a story from an Arab Israeli I have not met before. He asked me to do that, and every video like that had over 1 million to 2, 3, 4, 5 million views. Okay, so what happened is after a couple of months, the extremists come back again because the level of intensity went down. And when they are up and they are concentrated, and because they are concentrated and they're well-oiled machine, then you would see that that voice that you used to hear before suddenly starting to get back and be quiet. Now let me tell you something here, and I'm going to say something, and unfortunately, it's a sort of a criticism about our academy here, about our academic way. And I'm sorry, it's including all the universities. Now listen to me very carefully. There was a protest, of anti-Israeli protest in the midst of our war, existing war. And that protest was to celebrate the Nakba. Do you know what the Nakba means? The Nakba means celebrating, or Litzayen. Litzayen is celebrating, right? Commemorate the worst disaster that happened to them, to those who are commemorating. And what is the worst disaster? The existence of the state of Israel. Okay? Now you tell me, when I as an Arab, and Arab Israelis who want to fight for the state of Israel, but with the blessing of the state of Israel, allows the extremists in our society to continue and do exactly what they're doing, how do we, the weak one, would look at it and say, well, if our country is not supporting and allowing them to be that strong, what would we do? Now, lucky for me, I'm strong enough because of the Israeli society, both Arabs and Jews, to stand in front of them and expose them. But as long as the state of Israel is not aligned with us, it's going to take us further, and it will be much, much harder. And that's what I'm talking about. This is exactly the issue, that when we give more power to the voice of who want that partnership, then the extremists would be zero to nothing. And that's what I actually want to work on. And that's why we saw this shift. But the honest thing is that the 70% are still exist and they're there. My job and our job is to make sure that they speak out loud more. That's the next mission.
Now, we have one last question before we conclude this excellent session, please.
I'm from Brazil, so I remember vividly when Israel and the 19-year-old came third. It hurts a bit about
I know. Well, it was a great win, 3-2.
When I hear you speak, it gives me the impression that the trends into integrating Arab society, Arab citizens into Israel is happening. I was particularly thrilled in the previous election when Ra'am took part in the government, because to me it was like, okay, now we're talking, because this is the real change. We have 120 seats in the Knesset, but we have about 12, 13 seats for 10. And what is the trend? Are we going to see Arab citizens with 24 seats in the Knesset?
This is, first of all, an amazing and ending question. because now you will understand absolutely everything regarding politics, especially, here, not politics in general, of course, about the Arab-Israeli politics. Let me tell you something. Based on politics, by the way, I couldn't be further from what I believe and think, because 90% of the Arabs in Israel vote to the political Arab parties. Now, just to make sure, to understand my point of view, when Mansour Abbas entered the government and sat down in the coalition, I said, I'm actually blessing this step forward. But between me and Mansour Abbas, there's a huge gap in the ideology. And I've said it many times. Yet I said it's a very good step towards what we want to do, the further steps. Because Mansour Abbas did a very important step by saying, hey, an Arab political party will sit down in the coalition. And he also made it clear and obvious to the rest of the world that if Israel was a racist state, if Israel was an apartheid state, even for political instance, they would have not put a political Islamic party in the coalition with controlling quite a lot of budget, okay? So, the fact that we showed that there is a possibility for Arab political party to be in the coalition, that was very, very, very good step. The fact is that Mansour Abbas said that he is a citizen of the Jewish state and he's an Islamic leader of an Islamic political party, that's a major step. The fact that he said, I'm an Israeli citizen, that's a major step. But the fact that his own organization or affiliated organization contribute money that the majority of it went to Hamas, that's a problem. That's a problem. Wait. Who says it's not true? Let me tell you something. Out of the 100% of the money of the organization, 48. Out of 100% of the budget that went to Gaza from 48, let me be clear. The entire money goes into banks in Gaza which are controlled by Hamas. That money goes to actual organizations that help innocent kids. 100%, I'm not denying that. But you cannot deny that the majority of that money, or at least half of that money, goes to the terrorist organization. And anyone else says that is just naive, point. And I'm not going to be naive. Do I think that we need to support orphan kids? Do I think that we need to support Palestinians who are innocent? Absolutely yes. But do I need to be naive and just to say, oh, I'm supporting their kids and still make money to Hamas? I won't be that one just to say, oh, I'm great, I'm giving money to the infants. I want to give them money knowing that that money will go entirely to them, and entirely to their farewell, and to make sure that they're actually having good life. But anyone who says that they're not having, that the money is not going to a terrorist organization is just naive. And I know that because the people that I'm actually speaking with is not Arabs from Israel, certainly not Jews from the left side or the right side. I'm speaking with Palestinians who are living in Gaza. They're the one who are telling me that. So none of the people who are saying to me that it's not true, they can actually say that to me because I know the truth. I'm speaking to them. I am the one who is in front of that line. So if I am telling you that based on my experience and based on the talks that I'm doing with Palestinians, ladies and gentlemen, they are the one who's complaining, not us. Because I'm living in a democracy. I have a freedom of speech. I have a freedom of religion. Ask the Christians in Gaza if they have a freedom of religion. Ask even the Muslims if they have a freedom of speech. Any one of them would tell you, and who's not supportive of terrorism, would tell you exactly what I'm telling you. They're exactly the silent voice here. Too scared, and of course they're too scared. They're scared more than anyone else because they are ruled by a terrorist organization that throws their rivals from the roof. That is the reality. And that's what's going on there. And as for the politics here in Israel, there's a reason. If I ask anyone, put the year of Mansour Abbas aside. If I ask anyone from the Arab society, give me one achievement that an Arab politician did to the entire Arab society, not a particular per person or per group, but as an entire whole society. Give me one achievement. I don't even want to ask you. I'm asking this in my lectures in Sakhnin, in Nazareth, in Haifa. I'm asking this Arab Israelis, and Arab Israelis are not giving me any answer. Do you know why? Because there isn't. They are trying to work on dividing us. They are trying to work on making sure that our society is weak. And there's a reason why they want our society weak in Israel. Because a weak society is a controlled society. And a controlled society will time after time vote for the same people, even if it just sell us illusions. Because we are a weak society. That's why they're scared to confront me. You don't understand? That's why they don't want my voice to be in Israeli Arab media. Because they know that I bring different views. And they're scared of that views because they're afraid from how I affect. And that's why they do not want to confront me. That's why even in a Hebrew media, if they see me, they run away. I have a video clip that I urge you to watch. You would see Ahmed Tibi is running away. You would see Sami Abu Shahad is running away. You would see Aida Touma Sliman blowing up an interview the second that she heard my name. And why do you think they're doing that? Not because they don't want to challenge me. Because they cannot handle the challenge. They cannot handle what I know about our mentality, what I know about our society. They do not want to be confronted for the fact that they haven't done anything. And the only one thing that they've been doing is focusing on Gaza, Ramallah, and Jenin, and not Nazareth, Haifa, and Lod. That's the bottom line. And this is why I'm telling you, when it comes to the political issues, if we actually manage to arrive to the vision that I'm talking about, which is the vision of I am proud to be an Arab, I'm proud to be an Israeli, not only that the Jewish society will welcome that, I'll tell you what, some of the Jewish society will vote for that party.
And on that high note, we must allow you to eat something. That's the instruction. You have to go to lunch from here. Let me just, on behalf of all of us, thank our wonderful guest, Yosef Hadad.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very good question.
Thank you so much.
תל אביב 360, ערוץ הפודקאסטים של אוניברסיטת תל אביב.